Hi, good afternoon, everyone. If you can hear me, just drop a chat in the chat box. If you can hear me, just drop a chat in the chat box. Okay, great, great, great. So, welcome to another webinar by Accounting Yard. For those who are not familiar with Accounting Yard, we'll definitely introduce you to what Accounting Yard is. I am your host, and also I will be the one taking this session. And my name is Oladele Udupemi, right? And the idea is we created this webinar because we realized that a lot of accountants, right, realize that improper record is a very common issue for most accountants, right? So if you look at it in the Nigerian landscape, in terms of entities who employ people, um, MSMEs and SMEs are the largest employer of labor in Nigeria, right? Not everybody will work in the likes of a Dangote or in the likes of MTN, right? As large as those corporates are, right? If you look at the manpower they employ relative to what is like small side businesses that are doing less than even 300 million in turnover, if you combine them together, they employ more people than any of these large corporates, right? But unfortunately, one critical issue about them is that they don't have proper accounting records, right? You see a business, you even see some businesses that are well structured. You see, they are big, but they don't have proper accounting records. So that means that's a fundamental problem, right? And unfortunately, the accounting profession, either from our professional exams like ICANN or ACCA, don't prepare us towards handling incomplete record, right? So there's usually that big challenge or gap, right? In terms of knowledge and skill sets required to actually manage the preparation of manage dealing with incomplete record, right? So based on that, this webinar is to provide that first level key understanding that will help you be able to walk through a scenario where you are faced with very messy books, right, or incomplete records. Well, how do you go about it? Because most times people, when they are faced with such a challenge, they feel overwhelmed. They feel like they don't even know where to start from, right? So this webinar helps you lay that foundation that can help you provide that level of insight that can help you stabilize things, right? And the idea is at the end of the day, we hope that we're able to lay the kind of impact we hope to achieve during the course of this webinar. And this webinar is not a one-way show. It's not just me talking, right? There'll be instances where I will ask questions, right? So that people are able to bring their own perspective of what has happened to them from a business perspective, right? And what they've experienced in terms of incomplete record. And that's what brings a very balanced perspective, right? As more engaging the session is, the better it is for everyone. So once again, my name is Oladele, and I'll be your host stroke facilitator during the course of this webinar on navigating incomplete records and messy books. For those in working or just interacting with Accounting Yard for the first time, Accounting Yard is basically not a training, it's basically a body set up to bridge the gap between theoretical and practical accounting. And our vision is simple. We want to be the number one practical accounting school globally, impacting the lives of at least roughly about 2 million accountants, right? And if you've been interacting for the first time, right, we've done these webinars over the years, right? I'm sure this is like maybe the 20th webinar we're hosting. And you can check us on our various social media platform and even on YouTube, right, where some of the past webinars that have been hosted are actually available on our YouTube channel. So you have a lot of things in terms of learning, from in terms of dealing with ARPs, taxation, tax audits, to preparation of management accounts, right, to starting your career as an accountant, to dealing with double entry in principle, and a host of other webinars, right? And we even have videos that have done up to 20,000 views from people who have enjoyed some of the knowledge that we've dished out. And we do this for almost close to zero, right? So there are instances where we give free things, like this webinar is free, it doesn't cost a kobo. And basically we have trainings which we do, which are very cheap and affordable, right? I just like to describe it as cost of our webinars or cost of our trainings are almost as similar to the cost of data, right? With 15,000 naira, you can buy data. With 15,000 naira, you can take some of the courses that we take as Accounting Yard. So who am I? Right. My name is Oladile. So for those who are interacting with me for the first time, I'm a strategic finance leader. Currently, I'm the head of finance of one of the largest agri tech in Nigeria. And they are able to gain experience managing finance operations, both from the manufacturing sector, consumer goods, and even dealing with retail sector, right? So I'm an expert facilitator. I have a background in basically training people around practical accounting systems, workflow optimization, management account preparation, advanced Excel, and financial modeling, right? And we've done this multiple times, right? And if you go to our website, which is accountingyard.com, you'd see what we call LMS, learning management system, where you see various trainings I have facilitated, and my co-founder, Israel Sudame, has also been involved in facilitating such trainings, and they are very affordable. I'm an AI advocate. I consider myself very passionate and leveraging AI, improving productivity of accountants. And if you wait to the end of this webinar, you'll see me demonstrate how you could leverage AI in dealing with incomplete record, right? One of the biggest challenges that people face is analyzing bank statements, right? During the course of the webinar, I will show you a simple scenario that can turn a 1 month work into less than a 30 minutes work leveraging AI. So I encourage you, stay to the end and you'll be able to get that for free at no cost, right? I will show you for free. Yeah. So I would just encourage you to stay put. Yeah. Now, from that, aside that, right, at this point, I'll pause and listen to people in terms of their expectation for this webinar, right? I like to always ask expectations so that we are on the same page. So there's no surprise, right? So that everyone knows what they are here for and we're able to align. And I'm also able to address some people's concern during the course of the webinar as we progress. So at this point, if you have you want to basically just communicate your expectation, you can signify by raise of your hands, or you can just drop a message on the chat box. All right, any of them is fine, right? So a message on the chat box or signify by raise of your hands. No one has his hands raised. Okay, good. We have the first person's hands raised. Okay, so let me unmute Isika, right? Okay. Yeah. Hi, Isika. Hi, good morning or good afternoon, actually.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, Isika.
Thank you very much. I think one of my expectations have addressed by you that just want to make that it's analyzing bank statements.
Okay.
Like you said, you have this story and then you have to start using tools to discover, especially it's gonna be in Excel. So
Mhm.
you want to do Power Pivot or Power Query and all of that, and it's a bit cumbersome. So if you
Mhm.
can leverage AI for me to be able to um, to analyze this bank statement as soon as possible within a space of 30 minutes, like you said, it
Mhm.
will really be of help because most of my clients they deal with me by sending the bank statements and I
Mhm.
just want to analyze the statement and it takes a while for me to be able to get it right and all of that. So that's basically my main expectation from here and
Mhm.
how we can also shorten the timeline of reporting for SMEs. So
All right.
that's why I'm really here.
Yeah,
Thank you
that's
very
fine.
much.
That's fine. You see, I can tell you for free, right? I've used the tool and I can tell you that the output of what you see, you'll be so amazed, right? That you'll be wondering, why didn't I know this before now, right? And I'll tell you, sit back, relax, and I'm very sure you'll see the result of what AI can do in analyzing bank statements, right? So don't miss out. Yeah. Joshua? Hi, Joshua.
And yeah,
Yeah,
can you
loud
hear
and
me?
clear,
Like,
Joshua. Loud and clear, Joshua.
okay, why am I here? So I'd seen a previous video of which you did on incomplete record, and seeing that alone, I wish I had gotten that knowledge like probably 2 years or 3 years ago, and I was in the previous job. So I have a friend that is also running a mini business. Then was telling me to also come on board to prepare his account, and basically he only has bank statements. So
Mhm.
this meeting was mainly set up for me in particular. So I'm all ears, willing to see all I can get, and probably more that's to come up also. So I'm
All
looking
right.
forward to everything that's shared.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks a lot. Grace. Hi, Grace. Hello, Grace. Hello, Grace.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good evening.
Yeah,
My
good
name is
evening.
Grace Kameke, and my expectation on this training is to, get to understand how, because I find myself working for so many small business owners who don't actually.
Grace, we can't hear you again. We lost you. Right. Can anybody hear Grace? Okay. Let's hear from Wanma. I hope I got the pronunciation right. Hi, Wanma.
Yes. Good evening, everybody.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, okay. I have a professional background in audit, but of
Okay.
course we have some clients who you have to basically start from the scratch from.
Yeah, okay.
So I actually do have experience with incomplete records, but
Mhm.
it's the AI aspect that I'm really interested in, and that's my expectation. I want to see how I can
Mhm.
leverage AI to my, to just make things easier and quicker for me and my clients also.
Yeah, yeah. So similar to what I can't remember the first person's name now for now, right? I can tell you for a fact, right? I if I had my way, I'll just jump into the AI part, right? But what I'll do is you will see the AI part in the middle and see AI part at the end. Just sit back, relax, and see the beauty of what AI can do, right? And I can tell you, you'll be wondering that you'll be asking me, can please send me your account number. I want to send you 50,000 naira, right? Because you basically helped me solve 10 years of problem, right? In less than 10 minutes, right? That's how great it is. I am not making mouth. I am telling you the truth, right? But let's hear from Akim.
Thank you.
All right. Hi, Akim.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please. Hi, Akim.
All right, well done, well done. I actually, my expectation at the end of this class. In fact, I don't want to repeat what everybody has been saying, since you're already telling us what we are going to see. But
Mhm.
I am actually like, I don't know whether you set up this for me. I just got a job and the account is in mess. I don't even know where to start from, but I know they have a bank statement from the 25 till date. I was just leveraging on how do I even start? How do I make up any account
Mhm.
sense from this? Because I've already even introduced to them and they've agreed to install an accounting software.
Mhm.
But how do we come up with historical one to be able
Mhm.
to, you understand?
Yeah, I
So, and
guess.
at the end of this, training,
Mhm.
I want to go, in fact, by tomorrow or by this night, I want to
Mhm.
be sure, I want to be boast of, oh, don't worry, your historical is ready. You
Mhm.
can now move into to the
Yeah.
ERP system.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
fine. All right, no problem. So I think I'll take the last two so that we can get into the actual work itself, right? So less of the talking, more of the action, right? So let's hear from Godwin. Then after Godwin, we hear from Sunday, and we close it there. Right. Emmanuel, sorry. I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to interact with you. Hi, Godwin. You can make it
Okay,
quick.
okay. Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, good evening. I want to thank you specially because I bumped into the Accounting Yard YouTube page yesterday and I noticed, in fact, that place is a warehouse of development videos as an accountant. Thank you so much for all you've been doing. Straight to what my expectation is today. Specifically, my expectation is I intend looking forward to see how a general ledger looks like and the journal. Okay, when you have your source document, how does the journal look like in Excel format and in the general ledger? How do they really look like before it gets into the balance and the trial balance? You understand? Then this one is another um idea I had in mind. I would tell you this personally that okay, I look forward maybe as time goes on progresses, maybe you could also do have a course which I would gladly register and participate, something for accounting for fintechs, you understand? And
Mhm.
also a deep dive into reconciliation because reconciliation is a wide area. It has reconciliation for payables, reconciliation for bank statements, reconciliation for tax. So even if you organize and say, I would with my full chest register. So thank you so much for all you've been doing. God bless you. Thank you.
All right, that's fine. All right, so to the last person, so Gordon, just to give you feedback, right? Some of the things will be covered, but because of the 2 hours webinar, there's a limit to how much you can go. But the good part is that there's a training that is coming up by 28th of February, which is accounting system in practice. It will cover everything you've said, except the fintech and reconciliation part I'm talking about. But in terms of the general ledger, it will look like the posting and all, that particular training would go more in depth in potentially even solving a case study, right? Where you see a business with incomplete record and basically you work from zero to the end, right? And that's what's going to cover. Yeah. So Sunday, our last person before we move on. Hi, Sunday. Hello, Sunday. Sunday, if you are speaking, we can't hear you. Hello, Sunday. Okay. So I guess we can't hear Sunday. So we'll continue. All right. For all those who have spoken, thanks for your expectation, and it's well noted. Yeah. So just to scroll through what has been said in chat box, let's just scroll through. So preparation financial statements, we will not get to preparation of financial statements. Here is not talking about how we would walk you, what are the things you need to do and the steps required. And we'll now show you a sample example of how to analyze bank statements using AI. Okay. So, like I said, we're not going to cover preparation of financial statement, right? It's our webinar. So the practical part is the bank statement analysis, and that's where we'll stop. We have a dedicated class or a training on preparation of financial statements, and which is on our learning platform, which is accountingyard.com. And you can take a course on preparation of financial statement, and that assumes you already have a trial balance, right? So this course just focus on this particular webinar focus on just analyzing bank statement and the steps in dealing with incomplete record. The accounting system in practice deals with getting from little or no record all the way to the trial balance. Then we have a class later on operational manual account that now adds this one trial balance side. Yeah, so you will learn, but yeah. My voice is echoing. Can you do something about it? Is my voice still echoing? Okay, all right. My voice is not echoing. That's good. All right. So the next thing. Now, so the rescue manifesto, right? So expertise only to bridge the gap between financial chaos to business survival, right? Incomplete is not just an accounting headache; they are direct threats to solvency and scalability of a Nigerian SME. So the reality is, a lot of undermine the issue incomplete record or messy book causes for most businesses. And the reality is that if they don't resolve it, one day they will be making a decision based on data that doesn't even give them how profitable or how sustainable the business is. So we as accountants, our work is to act as a business physician, right? Help them diagnose the cost, resolve it, and help them get to a proper and well-structured accounting system that they can leverage on, right? In terms of, getting them to a very standard accounting system, right? And that's what we hope to achieve during the course of this webinar, right? Give you how do you go about it. If you find yourself with incomplete record, what are the steps you need to take? We'll talk about that in more detail. Now, the first phase, which I usually say, you cannot fix what you don't understand, right? So if you find yourself in a scenario where you are dealing with incomplete record, one of the first steps I say is that you engage with the stakeholders of that business. Who are the stakeholders of that business? The CEO, the owners of the business, right? It could be the MD, right? The sales director, people that hold senior management level in that business, they have a good understanding of the operating mechanism of that business, right? So what you typically would do is you sit down with them, design certain questions to engage them, right? So for example, how do you make money in this business? Who are your major customers, right? What are the major things you spend your money on? What are the cost and benefits on, right? Right. You just have to understand that business, right? If it's a business that has, who are your staffs? How do you pay them salaries, right? What are the major things you incur expenses on, whether from a raw material perspective, on what level of data do you have, right, around that business? Yeah. Oh, you are sitting in a particular property. Did you rent it or is it owned by the business? Hmm? You want to ask for basic information such as your CAC document. The CAC document will tell you about who owns that business, right? And by virtue of that, you know, oh, share capital, who, how much you should have in your share capital, for example. Yeah. So that CAC document can tell you. And don't forget, in your CAC document, it also tells you who are the owners of the business, the shareholders, the directors of the business. Because one of the key things in analyzing bank statement is that those individuals, their names will most likely appear in that bank statement. So it will help you in properly analyzing them. Similar with when you see transactions with employees, you know, oh, these are transactions with employees, and you need to know, oh, this kind of employee, what does it usually do that usually you get certain expenses paid to him for, right? Similar to vendors or customers, when you see transactions with specific names, you know by virtue of this person, you know, because you know the list of those, you know the vendors, and you know what they do for the business. You can really say, oh, this transaction relates to it, production, purchase of assets, oh, buying of maybe a land, oh, buying of raw materials, by virtue of just, and that's from engagement of senior management or people that are very involved with the operation of that business. So it's very important to understand the business, because from that perspective, every other thing will flow through, right? So it's very critical that you understand the business, right? The customers, the vendors who own the business, what the business was set up primarily to do, and what are those secondary activities that typically happen, right? And it also helps in terms of classification of transactions, right? A business that, for example, deals with consulting service, computer for that kind of thing will be asset. A business that sells laptops and computers, for example, will be what? Inventory. It's understanding of the business that will help you be able to identify how you treat certain transactions, right? So it's very important that when you are given you come up with a business with incomplete record, you take your time to understand that business, because it will help you in analysis and also setting up a proper accounting system for that business. Now, the next thing is documentation, right? There's the oral tradition. If it's not documented, it never happened, right? So as much as possible, you want to verify whatever conversation with supporting documents. There are instances where a particular transaction you're dealing with, you've seen it in the bank statement, right? However, you don't have any document to substantiate it. Sometimes, if you have a vendor that is very organized, if you see a transaction, if you list them, they can actually get you supporting documents to support those transactions. Some documents, some vendors, not all vendors, right? If you have a counterparty that is very organized, they can actually give you supporting documents. So sometimes in building the accounting system, you also want to engage those vendors, right? Or the third party to get whatever supporting documents that they have to support certain transactions. It helps you better, right? You want to deal with, oh, who owns the business? CAC, right? The CAC document will tell you a lot, or a shareholders agreement if they are that organized. So it's very important that in your dealing or dealing with this incomplete record, as much as possible, you want to interact and identify where you can get relevant supporting document as much as possible. Yes, I understand peculiarity where there are instances where there are no documents, but even your analyzing of the bank statements, you want to deal with people that you know that if they say A, they mean it. Their words carries weight, right? Not just any other person, right? Because, for example, an employee can tell you this transaction is something else, and when it goes with the MD, he tells you something different. The MD's words will most likely carry a higher weight, right? So it's very important to understand that bit. Yeah. Now, as much as possible, as you engage with people, you want to take notes, right? Because those notes will help you understand things in more perspective, right? Either in your jotter or in a book or one way or the other, so that it helps you basically form a trail, understand what exactly is happening in the business itself, right? The phase two is data scrapping, right? So as much as possible, when you're dealing with incomplete record, you find out that, yes, the business does not have records, but one way or the other, businesses usually have some level of data or some level of record they keep, right? So for example, you see sales. For most businesses, sometimes they actually have like they have like maybe what's called it, an Excel spreadsheet of transactions or sales transaction. It may not be complete, but they'll have it. It may not be well structured, but they'll have it, right? So sometimes you want to leverage on that. sometimes the business, if you look at, the business itself, they may not have like a proper record of purchases or whatever. But you can find one employee, because of his response for that tax, he has some level of data being kept relating to what dealing with incomplete record. So just by engaging him, just say, oh, see, I have this record, right? It may not be complete, but it gives you some level of data that you can leverage on. You don't just assume there's no record at all, right? So by engaging and forming the right relationship, you get some level of data, right? So salaries, as much as possible, most organizations pay salary, right? If one, they have what's called a letter of employment, or you are dealing with someone who is responsible for handling salary payments, they can tell you, oh, this employee, he joined by this time and this salary we agreed with this person, right? So they're able to use either from emails, pull out data that you can leverage on to form that basis of like some level of salaries, right? Or some level of reconciliation in terms of salaries. I usually tell people sometimes if you are dealing as an accountant with incomplete record, more often than not, if some SMEs, they'll just say, oh, they just pick salary, their net pay is their salary, right? But if you want to build proper record, you want to move from the net pay gross up to get your full gross salary so that you're able to create like a payable for payee or any of the relevant statutory deductions, right? So that you are now properly building record for them that they can now clear backlog of remittances when necessary. And that is like a better way to do it than just treating that net pay is gross salary. If tomorrow they are exposed for tax reasons, they will have a problem, right? So you can build that list of employees, the role when they joined and what they agreed. And if there are timings where the salary was increased, you can basically identify that, right? Now, like I said, you could also demand records from third parties, the vendors, the customers, anything from their end that they had when they're dealing with transaction with the business, right? So, and I always believe in looking at people that who are the most important people in the transaction, right? So it's very important that you're identifying who are the very so for example, who is the major vendor we deal with, who is the major customer we deal with, try to engage them. You don't want to be focusing on the small transactions when they are big transactions, right? So those big transactions can help you solve a lot of things or a lot of a big value in terms of the entire transaction itself early enough, right? So you want to use that to try to resolve the challenges in terms of incomplete record. Start from the big ticket and gradually go down to the smaller tickets over time, right? Now, the bank statement. For for most businesses, when there's no record at all, they have bank statement. And a good thing sometimes is that some of them usually put narrations in their bank statement. And that is where AI comes in. Once there's some element of narrations in the bank statement, AI is able to what? Analyze, classify, and put transaction into various perspectives, right? Just by seeing the narrations in those bank statements. Yeah. And when there are no narrations, it can identify who are the parties that were involved in those transactions and group them, such that when you engage with with the employers or key individuals in the organizations, you cannot say, oh, these are a list of 20 people that I noticed in the transaction. Who are these people? What kind of business dealings do you have with them? The business owner cannot say, oh, based on this, so this individual, this is what we do. This is what we do. So because of you analyze and identify those individuals, the owner of the business is able to further give you that level of insight to resolve all those unclassified transactions in a shorter pace of time. So what has AI done for you? It has leveraged classifications or names in the bank statement to simplify your work, right? So you don't expect it to solve everything, but at least it can do that dirty work for you to analyze and streamline the level of how untidy that data was into structured data to help you take the next step in terms of resolving some of the challenges there. Yeah. So that's where AI will come in and leverage in terms of analyzing your bank statement and now give you that first level of bank statement analysis to classify them into buckets that you can now take from there into your next step. Right. Now, phase 3 is in terms of building the structural blueprint. Now, more often than not, right, one of the key things that will help you is what? Building a chart of accounts. So when you've interacted with all these people, you've done all that, from an accounting perspective, you want to build a chart of account. The chart of account forms the backbone of what now fits into your trial balance and your general ledger, right? The chart of account is what helps you potentially, more often than not, your chart of account is based on the 5 elements: your assets, your liability, your equity, your income, and your expense, right? And what it does is that if you think about your income statement, your statement of financial position, and the notes to the account, you see all the subcategories and categories you see there. What now happens in your chart of account is that it creates what we call an account group, right? So that it's able to classify each of those groups. So, for example, if I'm in trade receivable, it creates an account group so that account 12001, account 12002, they are all trade receivable, right? And one stands for asset. When you see 12, it means what? Maybe current asset. If you see 11, it means what? Non-current asset, right? And that's what your chart of account to do for you. So based on it, you can now create your various GL codes, which you now use in now building your general ledger based on your posting of transactions into general ledger. And once you have your general ledger, once you summarize it, it now becomes what? Your trial balance, right? Now, the reality is, as much as possible, one of the key things you want to do when you come with a case of incomplete record, if they are doing cash basis or checkbook, you want to move them to an online banking system, because that way the chances that transaction trail is lost is reduced, because that way, because they have an online banking, the bank itself is serving as some level of record for them. So you can move them from checkbooks to paper trail to online banking, right? And encourage them to also put what? Some level of transaction narrations in the whenever they're making payments or deliverables, right? As a initial first phase. Yeah. Now you want to research about that business, right? Understand what are the typical structures of those businesses and how they work, right? Understand how those things, what makes up cost of sales, what are the kind of margins you see in those kind of things. So it helps you in analyzing and building an expectation of things, right? So why am I saying this? You've done a particular analysis, right? You see that the gross profit margin in this sector, for example, is maybe between 20 to 30%. You've now done an analysis, you've now built like an income statement for them, you're now seeing a 50% gross margin. It's telling you that something is missing, right? So by understanding the sector, it helps you query some of the outcomes of what you see, right? Either in terms of correctness or accuracy. Yeah. So it gives you insight. You see a business that you know is asset heavy, right? But based on your record now, you're now seeing little or no assets. You're not asking, how are these assets? What happened to, does this business not have assets, right? You're a school. Don't you have, okay, didn't you lease the property where you are, or do you own the property where you are? The classrooms are furnished for students. Where are those assets in your books? I can't see them through the bank. Oh, you now say, oh, if these payments were made from the owners of the business account, they didn't make it from the business account. Those are the kind of things, right? You want to have a kind of inquisitive mindset, right? So that they're able to query some of the things that you see. Because the reality is, as much as bank statement helps you, itself is not complete. So it's the ability of your understanding of that business, the ability to query some things that may not be thrown from your bank statement analysis. You want to ask those questions, right? And that is driven from how you've seen the benchmark or certain structures you see from an industry perspective, right? It forms that query or that mindset that you can use to now ask who the owners of the business or the senior manager of the business about that business, so you can now start identifying those things, right? So it gives you proper insights that can now help you properly ensure that you have a well-structured accounting. I'll pause here and take questions at this point, just in case people have any question at this time. I see Sunday's hand is still up, so I will mute him. Hi, Sunday. Hello, Sunday. Okay, he has dropped hand. So I'll pause and see if anybody has any question at this point before we proceed. Okay, all right. So let's get yes here from Fumi. Hi, Fumi.
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity, sir. I just want to ask, you've said so much about asking questions when there are incomplete records. But what if in a situation, because we have some organizations that they've been in existence for so long, but up until date, they still have an incomplete record in the sense that, here and the value of those assets. And you are an accountant that is just being employed in such organization. How do you go about those assets?
Yeah. So,
and they are huge assets, maybe medical assets, scan, machine, and the rest.
Yeah, I get you. So I covered it later on.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I covered it later on, but I'll just answer that question now. Now, clearly, there are some businesses that are quite old and they don't have proper records. The honest truth is that the longer a business has had incomplete record, the more difficult it is for you to resolve it. So I'll not expect you to now start to go and solve 10 years ago problem today, right? Start from the most recent period and resolve it, right? Now, for assets, these are typically resolve assets. So first is that you take do a physical verification of all assets owned by the business in that premise, right? So typical data you want to capture, you drop a simple spreadsheet. So identify what is the name of that asset, identify the specification of that asset, right? And the name of the brand that produce or makes that kind of assets, right? Now, identify the location where that asset is located within the company premises, right? Now, once you've done that first level analysis, then if you know anybody within that department where you found that assets, say, oh, when do you think we start using this asset? It may not give an exact date or month, but you give a range of when that asset potentially was acquired, right? So you write it down. You do that for at least the majority of the significant assets you can identify within the business. Now, you now go online. Okay, based on this information I've carried, the name of the asset, the vendor, right? The specification, you now research online. What is the cost of this asset, right? Or what has been the historical cost of this asset at this time or date of the period? It gives you an estimated value of the asset, right? Then, given the fact that you know that this asset was acquired at this time, and you are referring to current period, you want to now kind of depreciate or amortize over that, or depreciate it over since inception of when the asset was acquired to that date. Now, it gives you a rough estimate of what the carrying value of that asset should be at that point in time. Now, because we are dealing with incomplete record, there's some element of estimation is allowed. You just need to ensure that that estimation is reasonable, right? And you can substantiate it. Now, you may not be able to prove it 100%, but you can give it at least 90 to 95% level of accuracy. Yeah? Now, if you see the name of the assets, if potentially if you lead out to maybe a distributor asset, it can also give you what the value of that asset was acquired. And if you go through the bank statement, potentially you can see when they paid for that asset, right? But like I said, you cannot do that for all the assets. You have to identify what are those major and big assets you want to identify. And some other assets you need to now do general, like, estimate based on, similar cost of this asset online, this is what it costs. But based on the materiality of that asset, that will determine the level of engagement you do, right? Maybe you reach out to the vendor that potentially purchased it from, or you reach out to a major distributor of that asset, right? So that can give you, I hope that answers your question or provides some level of insight to help you tackle that particular challenge.
Exactly, sir. Thank you, sir. But how do you now determine the useful life of the assets?
No, useful life
If it's
is
still working.
no useful life is the useful life is the easiest part, right? For most class of assets, if you go online, you can actually get a range of what useful life should apply for those nature of assets, right? And like I said again, even using AI, right? There's a feature an AI tool called Gemini, which is called deep research, right? If you enter the nature or class of that kind of asset and just say in line with industry standard, give me a range of useful life of this kind of assets, right? Don't forget that when you are doing your analysis on the field, one of the key things you did was identify when this asset was bought, right? So that way you have, we bought it 3 years ago. This asset can last for 7 years. So automatically you have the useful life and you have the useful that is left before it now exhausts its useful life. Does that help?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right, no problem. Tochukwu? Hi, Tochukwu. Hello, Tochukwu.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Oladele. Thank you so much for this.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so I have a couple of questions. one major one especially. Now, in terms of revenue recognition, something like a school, that they run in terms, or in sessions. Maybe first time, school fees have to be paid for, first time, then other payments they demand from parents or from students. So now in payments, let's say each student should pay 100,000 naira school fees. Hmm? Now, they know that at the end of the term, they have maybe 200 students. Their revenue from school fees should be 100,000 times 200 students. So how do they recognize it? In the sense that, these payments are not made at the same time.
Yeah.
Some might not even be complete. They might be carried over to next term, which will start a new payment again. So, John, can you give us a kind of little explanation on how it should be treated in
Okay.
practice?
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the way I would do it is one, once a student has been enrolled for a session, right, that money becomes a receivable, right? So basically, I recognize a receivable and I may not recognize the revenue at that point, right? Once an employee or a student is enrolled, right? So I potentially debit a receivable and create like deferred revenue, right? Now, what I would do is a term is usually like maybe 4 months or 3 months, right? I will now amortize that income over the duration of a term, right? When the person pays, right, that's when I'll now basically my debit my bank and credit the receivable due from that particular student, right? So even if a student has not paid, provided he has been enrolled and has commitment towards being in class, right? I recognize a receivable from him, and when he pays, that's I knock off the payment against receivable. But in terms of income, recognize my revenue, I earn it over the period of the duration of the session, right? More often than not, what some people just do is recognize at once, right? But what I believe is because of it's over a period of time, a student enjoys that benefit over a period. Though it's guaranteed that once you locked in, you cannot, there's no refund policy. But what I'll do is recognize over the duration of the term of that session, and that's how I'll treat it. Hi, Nathaniel. Hi, Nathaniel. Okay, I think Nathaniel is not with us. Hello, Esther.
Good afternoon. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening. How are you doing now?
Fine, thank you. So I want to ask concerning that AI, is there a particular AI you recommend? And also, is there an amount of data that the AI can take? Because in our organization, sometimes we have incomplete record up to like 100,000 transactions from bank. So is there an AI that can accept all that, or is there a way to go about it?
So the AI tool that I'll use during this webinar is called Claude, Claude, right? It's similar in terms of ranking, right? So when you think about ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude is like the third one, right? Right now, there's an add-in that was introduced roughly about 3-4 weeks ago to Excel, so that when you introduce it, you add as an add-in and use to analyze. Yes, there's a limitation in terms of the volume of data it can handle, but the number of data it can handle is also a function of your plan you're dealing with, right? In AI, there's what you call tokens, right? And that's the ability for an AI tool to get context on a particular data set, right? Gemini is said to be the largest in terms of being able to handle tokens. And Gemini has 1 million tokens. That means it's able to handle as much as 1 million context. Some people say it can handle up to 1 million books. That's implication. Um, ChatGPT is the second. ChatGPT has 500,000 tokens. Gemini, Cloud is the third. It can handle 200,000 tokens, right? But however, because of Microsoft Excel is one of I think it's the most popular productivity tool, office productivity tool. And Claude has been the first to be able to develop a very efficient tool that can work with Excel, right? Copilot exists on Excel. I've not used it. The shortcut X also works on Excel. I've not used it, but it's also said to be good, right? But I have used Claude, and Claude works very well. Now, in terms of the volume of transaction you're dealing with, what you now do is that you now break those transactions into chunks, right? And feed it into the Excel tool. Yeah. The only thing that will happen, one, is that one, it will cost you more in terms of using the tool. Then two, you just need to just analyze it based on chunks or chunks, and it's going to help you deal with it, right? So it analyze the data and now work on it. Yeah. I hope I've answered your question, Esther. Now I think Esther Babalola. Hi, Esther Babalola.
I was the one who asked the question. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
all right. Let me ask the other Esther then. Hi, Esther. Hi, Esther Ajubi.
Yes. Good
Yeah.
evening,
Yeah, good evening.
Oladile. Thank you so much for all you do.
Mhm.
I've been a student with accounting yard back to up to from 2021 or thereabout. I've been following and I've just refused to delete, and I've been learning a lot. More grace to you. Thank you so much. Not really a question. I just want to ask if this recorded version of today's webinar will be given to us,
Yeah.
please.
So it's going to be given. So typically, after every webinar, we load it to YouTube, right? So all you just need to do, check the YouTube channel and you see the webinar available there.
Okay. Okay. I'm also interested in the training, the
Yeah.
incomplete records training. What time will it be?
Okay. So there's a chat box, just chat. Someone way to engage and provide further details so that we can just focus on the webinar if you don't mind. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Hello, Fumi. Hi, Fumi. Okay. Fumi is not with us. Hello, Kingsley. So I think I'll take Sarah. Then once after Sarah, then we go on. Hello, Kingsley.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah, hi, Kingsley.
Thank you so much for your webinar this afternoon. I appreciate them all. And actually, this is what has been troubling most of us as professionals. When you are engaged in an organization, you find out there's a lot of incomplete records. But you know that these incomplete records are done by, the officers that are employed in that organizations. So most of the time you find out that when you are asking this question you're talking about, they're not comfortable. They feel, this one is coming to unveil what we are doing here and stuff like that. But your main aim is to keep the record straight so that at a glance, even they themselves will be able to enjoy it. So you come into an organization where, the bank statement, the narration in bank statement is not same as the bookkeeping, the records that they keep. For instance, you have an inflow that comes in, and that organization will transfer that inflow to maybe an officer. For example, a big officer you mentioned, like the CEO, the COO, and the transaction will be done from the account of that COO. And then he will be the one that will be recording, some of the transaction by himself, by his writing, in the book that he keeps. And then you try to match it with bank statement, they are not flowing. So my concern is, how do you go about it? Because I know, for one, you will see the bank statement of that individual, a lot of activities happening there, even pay salary using his own account to make payment, buy some things for the office and stuff like that. But then when you begin now to analyze the major activities for the business, everything is tied to his name. The only thing you see that the bank statement, the inflow that comes, and then they move that a lump sum of money to his account. From his account, he dispense and then write for you. And then they now want you to keep a standard record. So how do you go about it? It's really a challenge in some of these organizations.
I understand. So, Kingsley, you've given a very practical scenario here, and I love your question, right? Now, the honest truth is that when dealing with incomplete record, you must get management buy-in, right? Now, what I mean by management buy-in is that if someone says they want to resolve a incomplete record, the MD, the owners of the business, must be willing to basically open their hands and say they give you full support, and whatever area you need, they're able to cooperate. Once there's no cooperation from their level, it frustrates all efforts that you may do. And that's no longer a competence in terms of your technical skill, but now this is not your soft skill, right? Now, quick way to handle scenarios like this is one, ensure that the business clearly understands the implication and the benefits of this process, and ensuring that whatever is done from that perspective, right? Like you identify, most of the transactions are going to go through the MD's account, right? Inflows come to the corporate account, it goes to his account. So automatically, by virtue, his bank statement is also some level of record for that business, right? Now, he needs to be open and plain to release that his bank statement to you, right? Next step is once he gives you that his bank statement, whatever you see in that bank statement is considered a true reflection of the transactions for that business, right? And you analyze it. If there are cases where you see, oh, a transaction different from maybe how they've recorded it, is to now for him to now tell you, oh, why it has been treated that way and why it's somehow different. If he's not able to answer you, there's little or nothing you can do, right? This is the outcome of what I have seen. But how this has been recorded, they should reconcile it, right? There's a limit to what you can do, right? If there's no cooperation from the team at that point, you've done your best, right? They just need to understand that if those contexts are not provided, your best is to using the substance or whatever evidence you have at that point to treat it based on either what you've gotten from the bank statement, right? Who the transfer or transaction was with the vendor, what the person do for you, and treat it that way, right? But then it's the best interest of management to cooperate with you. How well they cooperate with you is a function of how clean or how accurate whatever result you come out with from your analysis of that bank statement, and you're limited to that. Yeah. So the last question before we now cut from Sarah and go back to the session.
Okay, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good evening.
Yeah,
thank you for this opportunity.
yeah,
Because
well,
I have two questions. So it's based on the assets that was previously asked on. So when maybe after an incomplete information has been given and you discover that some assets were actually purchased, but at the point of you trying to gather your information, these assets are still being used, but they are already when you do your calculation or computation, you find that it has been depreciated. Like it's supposed to have been fully depreciated, but they are still in use. How are you to compute for or record these assets, or what is the next thing you're supposed to do? And my second question is based on depreciating an asset as well. So I'm a junior officer, so I have people I report to. Some of these superiors, not everything they will show you. So depreciation, whereby the one that we do on paper, is this same thing that it is being done on the accounting software? Like if you want to impute them on the accounting software, on paper you do your the costs, remove the depreciation for that month, and then it is the net book value that will be posted. So I want to actually please understand this process of depreciating a newly acquired asset or an asset that has already been depreciated, already has accumulated depreciation, and how it's being done on leaving the manual way that we've been doing in school and ICANN processes.
Yeah, I get you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the first question, right? If based on the estimated useful life of that asset, right? If it has elapsed, right, but it's still in use. Now, what some people will tell you is that they'll say, oh, it means that the estimation of the useful life was not accurate in the first place, right? But what I'll tell you, for purpose of simplicity, not to trouble or make your work complex, right? It has been fully depreciated based on your estimates, right? What you can do is basically recognize that asset at a scrap value, but it doesn't mean that you're going to continue depreciating the asset, right? So you assume that the asset has been fully depreciated and that's the end. Yeah, but you only recognize it to the tune of the scrap value so they can track that asset in the books. So that when it's needed to be disposed of, you can dispose of at that scrap value, right? And that's all, nothing more. Now, in terms of how depreciation happens in practice, it's very similar to how you think about it from a theory or ICANN or ECA perspective. The only difference is that in reality, in terms of accounting records, more often than not, depreciation happens on a monthly basis, right? So what just typically happens is if some accounting softwares have what you call maybe a fixed asset model, right? Where you run depreciation, where to compute depreciation of all assets that are available or in a state that is depreciated at that point in time, and it passes relevant accounting entries, right? By debiting the depreciation expense account and creating the accumulated depreciation, right? And typically what happens is you have two separate GLs. You have a cost GL and you have an accumulated depreciation GL, right? So whenever there's an asset that's acquired, the asset cost is recognized in the cost GL. When depreciation is passed, it's passed in the accumulated depreciation GL. Now, the net of the two now forms what you call your NBV, right? But typically, they are tracked at two different GLs. The cost is recognized in a separate GL, the accumulated different GL, and you have a GL for depreciation expense. And that's what happens, right? Nothing more, nothing less. Yeah. So I've taken a lot of questions. I'll pause here. I see chat in the chat box so that I am not leaving those in chat box. Someone is saying my voice is still echoing. Is my voice still echoing? Okay, so Rashidat, it seems like it's just your side, though. Everybody says no, it's just you, Rashidat. So yeah, the honest truth is yes, there will be issues that they are potentially hiding, but there's little or nothing we can do, right? All right. Uh, okay, all right. So let's go next. Now, great shift, right? Nothing much to say. You just want to ensure that you're moving from very scattered way to a more structured way, right? So for your data sources, you're using a digitalized ledger, right? So for example, using Excel or moving to a natural accounting software and ERP, right? Banking, you're moving to an online banking platform to be able to handle your payments and you need to get your bank statements. That way, you're able to ensure that no transaction leaves the business without properly being substantiated, right? Invoicing, you're moving to more rather than handwritten notes, you have a digital tool to generate invoices. There are a lot of tools online that can help you generate invoices and you can track it. Yeah. And analysis, instead of manually using tally or guesswork to analyze, you can use AI to power your bank statement analysis. Now, at this point, I will pause and open a scenario of a bank statement analysis for everyone to see. Yeah. So this is where we do our analysis from. So first step is I would get a bank statement. Hold on. Okay, got. All right. So I'm going to show you. So this is sample bank statement right here. I'm going to open it. Yeah. Now, in this bank statement, this is a typical bank statement here. I have my posting date, I have my description, I have my debit, I have my credits, right? Let me take out, I think I declared this, but let me take out this, right? It doesn't typically come. And have your balance, right? That's what the bank statement looks like. So I want to analyze this bank statement. Now, for most people in Excel, then you would see add-ins here, right? I have this add-in called Claude, right? Can you see it by Entropy? So you need to search and add that add-in. Yeah. Now, and for it to work, it means that you have a Claude account, right? So for me, I already have a Claude account, which I paid for, and I have the AI tool here. Yeah, so this is Claude. So it's loading. Now, this particular tool can be used to do a lot of things, right? And unfortunately, I'm limited by time in terms of what we can do here. Now, I've intentionally written what I would tell the AI tool to do for me, right? I don't start typing and all. So I wrote it here just to make our life easy. But basically, just so that everybody understands, it's a very simple thing. Sheet 1 contains a bank statement for a small custom shoe business. Add 3 new columns: amount, which is different between your debit and credit; classification based on the transaction description; sub-classification also based on the category within classification; identify the expense types according to the transaction nature; create a sheet with this analysis; a summary sheet showing the total show values and count for each classification; and a separate sheet for unclassified transaction with details such as party or name on the transaction to identify who the transaction was with, right? So this is what I wanted to do. Plain English, nothing complex. This is what I want to tell AI to do, right? Very simple. So let me copy everything here, right? And go to my Excel sheet. See this place? I'll just paste it here. Yeah. Let me expand this column. Now, yeah. Now, I think my own is description, not transaction description, but description. Based on description, right? So this is everything I wanted to do, right? I've explained what I wanted, right? And do it. Yeah. So I press enter. Now, the end goal is I'm going to create a new sheet called analysis. I'm going to create a summary sheet and create another sheet called unclassified transaction for me, right? So I tell it to do it for me, right? So now I've given it everything I need to do. All I need to do is I'll go and sleep, right? I'm not going to do any other thing. All I just do is maybe come back here, check what exactly it's doing. So just to give you context, what it's doing is reading this data, understanding it, right? And basically, based on the data, it's going to take this data, pull it into a Python script, right? Analyze it. Then based on the outcome, it will now create an office.js code. Now that office.js is basically JavaScript for Office. That is where the analysis will happen, and it will now write down the results into this Excel worksheet for me. Now, you see, it has told me that I've read the number of rows. It has told me to see that I found the header, right? It's a large data set processed in what? Python. And let me read all data chunks and classify the transaction. So it's in Python, it actually does the analysis, right? Once it does the entire analysis, it pushes on to Office.js. It's Office.js that will now pull and now finally export that final result here, right? Now, let me process all the data in Python to classify them. Let me use the data spreadsheet tools directly to read the Office data. This also will be in chunks with Office.js, right? So it's doing that, it's responding, it's reading, right? Reading all the descriptions. Now I have a comprehensive picture of all the transactions. Let me get more other samples to ensure thorough classification. So that means he has read a portion, he has identified a pattern. Now, but he needs to now break it further, right? Because it says, oh, maybe there are other potential classes he can do. Now, to give you context, I have done this on roughly about 3 to 4 bank statements, right? And I can tell you that the outcome is fantastic, right? So he has identified transaction analysis, summary, and unclassified, which are the 3 sheets I told it it's going to create for me, right? So you're going to create those 3 sheets. If you see, can you notice transaction analysis, summary, and unclassified, it has been created. Yeah? It's the work. It's doing the work. It's doing the magic, right? So let me process and classify all these transactions and rows. That is continuing the work, right? And like we also here was blank. Can you see? Can you see I has created it? Amount, classification, sub-classification, right? Summary, nothing. Unclassified, nothing. So I'm not doing magic. You can see that it's empty. So once it does it, it's now finally going to now read it into the sheet, right? It's going to be a replica of the bank statement with additional 3 columns, right? So you see. So he's now analyzing and processing all this. Yeah, like I said, this is Claude AI, right? Sorry, Yeah. So that it's while it's doing that. So you're done, it's done with chunk one. Can you see the results? So now it has basically done a lot of the transactions there, right? So it's writing down this. So I'm going to go to the next sheet and just wait when it brings out the next one so that you can see it's reading classify writing down for 4,500 to 6,000. So it has done that and it wants to just format it. See, if you notice, can you see this column that is not formatted? Can you see that it has formatted it now? It has expanded it. Can you see it? Yeah. So if you see expense, delivery and logistics, bank duties, stamp duties, can you see? Expense, transportation, expense, airtime purchase. Yeah. Cash withdrawal, ATM. So that's a transaction that you want to understand better, right? So can you see all those cash withdrawals? You want to go and reach out to the person and say, oh, what is that transaction relating to? Right? Expense, delivery and logistics. Can you see it? Can you see? Can you see? There's a lot of ATM withdrawal. So definitely you're going to reach out to the owner of this business and say, oh, when you withdraw money from the ATM, what typically happens? What does it relate to? Right? Yeah. Can you see unclassified, unidentified credits? So unfortunately, these particular people, the problem they have is that there's a lot of ATM withdrawals, right? So most likely you want to understand from, oh, when they withdraw money, what typically happens? That's because there's a lot of cash, right? And these a very old bank statement. So in more recent time, I'm sure there'll be more you see less of an ATM transaction. So now you can summarize it, right? Now, clearly, you see that the problem we have with this one is we have a lot of, what's call it, um, cash withdrawals, right? So you see outward transfer. It means they know a lot of narrations coming from the outward transfer, 663. It means that, oh, there's a lot that needs to be still be broken down for that particular one, right? As expenses, yeah. So you can see, can have that there. So you see it breaking it down. Yeah. So in the last scenario, one of the things I want to be focused on is, oh, you want to discuss with the person, okay, when you draw money from an ATM, what exactly do you spend the money on, right? In this particular scenario. Yeah. So that way you can get more context. Unidentified credit, unidentified debits, just put them here. Savings and loans, can you see? Loan repayments. Yeah. So you can see it has analyzed and summarized it. So you see the entire transaction, 6,539 transaction, and that's broken down into various classes. Yeah. Now, the next piece is these are the transactions it cannot break further, right? It has listed them and has also identified the parties it relates to. So if I'm going to meet someone now, I would just tell the person, transaction with these people, what exactly did they relate to, right? And based on the name, the owner of the business is able to tell me more about the transaction, right? So, tada, it has done all that, right? It has helped me analyze the entire bank statement, right? And with this now, I can now take the next step, right? We're done. So I'll pause and see. Yeah, so there are tools to convert from PDF to Excel, right? There are a lot of tools online to convert to PDF to Excel. Yeah, unfortunately. And the clean should be clear again. Right. So I'm using, so ask the version of Excel I'm using Excel 365, right? So, but it's not necessary that you need to be Excel 365 before you can use this add-in, right? Once you have an Excel, you download and you can work on it, right? So I know there are questions that people are asking me, what's the name of the AI tool I'm using? The name of the AI tool is Claude. Right? And I can tell you, this is just one thing that you can do. You can do way more other things, right? And if you're able to join the training, you would see me do more magic, right, with Claude. Yeah, I'll do a lot more with Claude than you can ever imagine, right? We are constrained by time, so there's not everything I can show you with Claude. Now, so in terms of how do you download the Claude, right? Like I said, under home, can you see home? You see add-ins, can you see these add-ins? You just search for what? Claude.ai. When you search, you can now add, you click on it here. Now, what it does for you is that it helps, it can create add-in here, but you need to now pay for Claude, right? Have an account where you're now paying for. I think it's a $20 subscription on a monthly basis, right? So you have that. Yeah. All right. So I will go back to our video, right? And take any question based on what Claude can do. And I think Kingsley, is your hand newly up or was an old hand? I'll drop your hand just in case. If it's an old hand, let me drop it. Nathaniel? Hi, Nathaniel. Nathaniel, let me just drop Nathaniel.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Nathaniel.
Yeah, I was trying to unmute myself the first time you asked me a question. So I was trying to talk about the sales reports record that you spoke about, that them having at least a little sales record can go a long way. But however, tying the sales record they have, like imagine you already have the sales record now and you already like drafted a ledger entry for the sales with the sales record you have, right? So now tying it to the bank statements, how would you like recognize the invoices have been paid
Yeah,
for?
so there are two things, right? It means that one, if they have proper sales record, is so once whatever invoices have been issued, you create revenue and debit receivable, right? For all the parties involved. When you analyze the bank statement, you have all the inflows that came into the bank account, right? So that means every inflow, you need to match it against a customer. So by the time you match it, what will now happen now? You now have an outstanding receivable. So the key thing you need to do is all the inflow needs to be matched against a specific customer, right? That's the most important piece. So you need to understand how this person pay and match it. So that's the work that is not additional work that is required. Matching every inflow to a customer account. And that can be done based on the nature of the narration that comes. Either you are seeing the customer name or you're seeing a pattern in terms of certain narrations that come anytime a customer pays, right? Or you're seeing maybe the invoice referenced in the payment or the inflow coming in. And that's it. Sometimes that may not be easy, to be very honest, right? But it may require some level of reconciliation, either working with the salesperson, right? Or working with maybe engaging the customer where necessary. But you don't only want to engage big or large customers, you want to engage small customers, right?
Okay, thank you very much. But but with this, would it be like 100%? Because you don't want to go you don't want to go meet a customer that the customer is owing, whereas the customer is not owing, or you don't want to forgo any amount that is receivable.
Okay.
So I don't know if some items, some inflow that might be unidentified on the bank statement. I don't know if it's enough to just tie it, or if there's another way that could also help with the unidentified transaction on the inflow on the bank statement to tie to the customers.
Now, so typically what happens in that scenario is, more often than not, there's someone within the organization that has a rough idea of what a customer owes you, right? Most likely the person that engages or deals directly with that customer. So once you've done your analysis and you arrive at a balance, right? That key contact person that deals with this with the various customers can confirm certain customer balances, so that if it don't tally with what he has, you will now need to, okay, see, this is what I have. Now, what is missing, right? You gave me your sales, I have the inflow. So, is there a payment that this customer made that I'm unaware of? And I say, oh, this is what happened. Maybe, oh, this particular sales did not end up happening. We gave person a discount or whatever. It would now help you explain it, right? So you don't just go and reach out to the customer. Internally, you must have done some level of reconciliation with the key contact person, someone that actually deals directly with that customer, right? To reduce it to whatever. When you now have scenarios where they're standing, you're not just going to go and reach out to the customer and say you're owing us. You're reaching out to the customer for that you want to do a reconciliation with them. That this is your expectation of their outstanding receivable. They should give you what their own is. Then based on it, you can identify, oh, is there an invoice in yours that is not in theirs? Is there an inflow in them that is not in yours? You can identify there, right? But it's not all the customers do that. For you want to prioritize the customer you're doing it for. You want to deal with large customers, because if you do it on every customer basis, it may not finish the work, right?
Oh, all right, thank you, no problem. But same things applies to purchase and vendors, right?
Yes, the same thing, right? But like I said, you don't do everybody. You prioritize the big tickets, right? If you want to do that level of analysis or reconciliation.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, welcome. Hi, Adewale. Hello, Adewale. Okay, Adewale is not there. Hi, Miriam.
Hello,
Hi,
sir.
sir. Good evening.
Okay, Miriam, hold
Okay.
on. Let's Adewale talk. Yeah, hi, Adewale. It seems
All
you're not.
right.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, you were doing some analysis the other time. That's why I raised up my hand, because there was a guy that asked a question about transactions. So the company where I happen to work,
Mm-hmm.
so most of the money
Mm-hmm.
goes to the from the company's account to the MD's account as a whole sum.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, though we have a WhatsApp group where we post transactions that we want to do. So most times when money is being transferred to the MD's account as a whole sum, so they might just call it logistics, but at the end of the day, to give the breakdown of what happened in that other account is somewhat difficult.
Yeah.
So to give a better analysis, so it's always hard. So I think is a challenge for me. So that's why I was raising up my hand on. I don't know, what to do
Yeah.
in
So to be
that
honest, right,
aspect.
if I get you right, you're saying that money comes to the business account, but that money is now moved to
Yes.
maybe the MD's account. Then that's where for
Yes.
the account that the payments are now made. To be very honest, right, you cannot do any magic unless the MD provides either his own bank statement that you want to analyze on. Anything other than that is impossible. And that's why I said that you are doing incomplete record. There must be some level of must call it um, willingness of senior management to cooperate, right, to help you in that process. If you don't get the buy-in of that senior management or the people that have engaged you, whatever you're doing, you most likely will not likely you the kind of result you expect from it. So there's always some level of cooperation. If they don't give you, trust me, there's no miracle, right? There's no miracle that they can perform. So we're not magicians, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So there's some element of cooperation. So the honest is that it's either the best you can do is explain to the owners of the business the importance of what you're doing, and for them to appreciate and understand it. If they don't appreciate it, trust me, no matter there's nothing I can explain to you. There's no data to analyze, right? You can analyze. Even when you analyze and you define certain transaction patterns, if they cannot substantiate it or explain it to you, or find a way to identify, oh, what does it really. All you need to just do is try to make their life easy, right? And not like you're gonna sit down with them and not show them 20 the entire 6,000 transaction. They will run away. Do you get? You want to just simplify their
So,
work. Yeah.
all right. Thank you, sir.
All right, no problem. Hi, Miriam.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
I wish that I have seen this AI like maybe 2 months ago because I was faced with a very similar situation at work. I think I did it manual. What I did was just to create the account head, then do the thing manual, and it took a lot of my time. I sincerely wish that I have seen this like months ago. It would have been really helpful. So my question is, if this AI doesn't exist now, what's the best way to go about this kind of situation? What's the best way to tackle it if there's no AI?
So it's very similar to what the AI would do, right?
Mm,
So one is you identify patterns in the transaction and classify them,
mm,
right? So, oh, you see transaction in a particular person's name, you identify, oh,
mm.
what does person do for you, right? So more often than
Yes,
not, by the time you be able to identify patterns, you be able to ask questions to the business owner and say, oh, based on this, what does it relate to, right? And if you look at
yes.
narration of the transaction, you see certain patterns, maybe airtime, you see air with a T, or you say salary, you say
Mm,
sal. Do you understand? Those things can now
mm.
give you hints on what this transaction relates to, so you can
I
help you
think
analyze
that's
it. Yeah,
that's what I did
yeah,
with
that's how you
the
do it. it may just take
yeah.
you longer, but with this
Yes, it takes a
example,
lot of time, sincerely.
yeah,
It's
it
too
does.
much. It takes a lot of time. All right, thanks.
Welcome. Hi, Tochuku. Hello, Tochuku.
Thank you, Oladele, once again. Thank you for all you do. Okay, so in fact, this very AI tool you mentioned, Cloudy, some of these challenges we have, especially is maybe the cost of acquiring them. So can I have an idea of the cost of this?
Yeah, like I said, it's $20, right? And trust me,
$20.
$20 is roughly about 30K, right? So I don't know. For me, with this, right, what will take you 3 months, right? Or a month in 2 days, all things being equal, you'd have done it, right? And in short, let me tell you how fun it is. Imagine you just spend $20 to do it, right? And work that they've been struggling with, you just come back within 2 or 3 days and you've analyzed it and you're showing them work, right? In short, you intentionally delay it, you delay it. So instead of going and show them once, you delay like 3 or 4 days or 5 days before you now show them the output. So I do not think that you're not working,
Okay,
right? And you reach out to them and now
okay,
show them. Then yeah, I don't know. But if you look
okay,
at it,
great. Yeah,
$20 to 30K, and you do it and enjoy it for 1 month and you stop it,
okay,
right?
okay. Thank you so much. But can you mention one or two other things it can do apart from this bank analysis?
So unfortunately, we are constrained by time, right? But I can
Yeah,
tell you
yeah.
for a fact that there are other things, right? Okay, I'll give you a
Okay,
point.
so
I'll give you examples. It can prepare a preparation schedule for you. It can do what's called, it can prepare a borrowing schedule for you. It can help you prepare a management
loan
account.
amortization.
Right? You can have a money account. And this I'm saying is not that they said they told me. I have done it myself. It can help you prepare. So I've watched videos on it to do a financial model, but what may have used it to do is help me correct errors in a financial model or build certain components within a financial model. Right. So that's the extent to which you can do other things. Yeah.
Please, yeah, sorry, is it, you said cloud or cloudy,
No, no, I'll
CLAUD?
type it. I'll type it. Just check the chat box. I'm sure someone has typed it in the chat box. Right.
Okay, thanks.
But yeah, but I'll just share my screen where it is. So yeah, I think I wrote it here. So this is it. Can you see it, Claude?
Okay, okay, all
Kingsley.
right.
No problem. Hi, Kingsley.
Cloud, okay.
Yes, thank you very much. Why I follow up on what you answered, management buying.
Mm,
My concern has to do with when you are faced with other professional that comes for auditing
mhm,
for the work you've done.
mhm.
It's a concern because if you take a stand and they haven't given you any support, most of the time we try to follow them just because of the payment they pay to us, as consultancy. But you know that some things are not right. And then you'll be faced with your a fellow professional colleague that will come for audit and query you on all these things that you have not done this, they didn't give you a management support and all that. So why did you do it? So it's a concern. That's one leg. But coming to this AI stuff, you know that what it means is that if you don't narrate well when you are making payment on the bank statement, that is why you are being that's why they are doing that classification of unclassified, or try to give a heading to it. So one of the most important thing I have seen is that you need to narrate well when you are making payments on the bank, when you are using bank statement to make payment. But where you have a bulk payment that have different uh, expense head, salary, transportation and stuff like that. Because it's a bulk payment, somebody now type salary. It's not salary, but it captures about 20 payments as salary. How would the AI handle it? Because it's also a challenge in that analysis. Because
That's
you are
fine.
not there, but you're trying to use the tool to solve
Yeah,
the
that's fine.
problem.
All right.
Thank you.
So in terms of dealing with your fellow professionals, right? So as much as
Yes.
you know that this transaction is so if I get you right, you understand that this transaction is for A, but management is saying you should recognize it as D, right? I know you don't have anything to substantiate D, but you know it's an A transaction. So when your professionals come in, they tell you why didn't you treat it as A and treat it as D, and you don't have any document to substantiate it, right? That's the scenario you painted, right? Now the honest truth is
Yes.
it's what you call like an ethical dilemma kind of scenario, right? Where your job is that on the line that if you don't do it the way management is, right? So from one professional to another professional, right? If an organization that says, oh, you are doing things that are not in line with what expectation is, right? And then the reality is why you can be looking for a means to exit, because the reality is there's nothing you can do, right? If if the owner of business wants it this way, it's either one, you're getting some level of confirmation from them, written confirmation, they say you should treat the transaction this way, right? While you're also looking on the other way to say, I know the labor market is hard and getting a job, but look for you to exit and find a more credible organization to work with, right? Because the honest truth is, that's not a technical issue, but more of what's call it, an ethical issue, right? Which is more of a soft skill and how you want to manage it, right? But the honest truth is, if you treat it the way that is right, it's either you are fighting the opposition, and one day they'll say this person is too difficult for us. Let's let him go, right? And that's what most likely
That
do.
has been the issue, sir. And
That's where they will turn to.
that is the issue. And that is what you face in most of these private sectors, what we call one-man business, okay, and sons. So will you keep, having issues with people resigning every now and then just because they don't want to do the right thing? And at the end of the day, it backfires on you. So it's a big challenge in the profession. So I don't know. I don't know. It's a big challenge.
Yeah.
When you try to do what it is, and then they push. So every time you'll be changing your CV, you move
So
from
kids that
place.
understand. The honest truth is, if so, one is yes, I understand the part of resigning and finding another job. It may be difficult, right? Finding another job, right? That exists. Yeah. Now, I would not advise you to also face with doing to do the wrong thing, right? I'm sure to a large extent there are credible organizations out there. Not every organization will tell you to do it that way, right? So in terms of getting another job that would be more in line, right? That would be the best bet. But I understand that it's a problem that exists. And as much as I'm telling you this is the best approach, it sounds very theoretical and very difficult because reality is you have a family to feed and want to take care of, right? And to be honest, I've told you what the answer would be from a theoretical standpoint and how ethically, from an ethical standpoint, right?
That
But
is
I
slow,
understand the
yeah.
fact that it's a difficult decision to make from a very practical standpoint, right? But the best way for me is manage them, pending when you get a
Why
second
would
role
I not?
that
You
is
don't,
in
you don't
a
want to finish this
ethical
film.
or in a more sane environment, right?
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So the other leg of bulk payment
Yeah.
classified, and
So
then
now
the
bulk payment. So the way I would treat bulk payment, for it to say it's bulk, it means that to a large extent, I want to believe that there's an upload, right, from your bank statement perspective, right? So meaning that if I'm able to get an export of all bulk payments from a bank statement, that can say, oh, all the bulk payment, this is the value it turns to, such that I create another sheet that is like all bulk payment transaction where they are, right? Where they now sub into categories. I cannot tell the AI that if you identify transaction of this, if you identify transaction of this nature, of this that tallies with this value, double check against this bulk place. And in short, maybe classify them as bulk. And based on the bulk, do an analysis of all these sheets that has all bulk transactions. And this every bulk transaction tied to that sheet. And is that bulk transaction sheet that is now analyzed to replace every transaction in a basket that is tied to bulk. Meaning that if I add all transactions that are bulk, let's say it's 1 million, the detailed analysis or the detailed transaction from a bulk upload will also be 1 million. Like the cloud can now or AI can analyze that 1 million and it will now replace that 1 million based on the bank statement. I think that makes sense. Right. So just to give you context, I come here, right? Let's say sheet one. Yeah. Let's say this 17,000 is bulk, right? And I have multiple. AI is able to classify all of these transactions as bulk, right? And if they all sum up to 1 million, I have a sheet where I will download from the backend all my bulk related transactions, right? And it's able to do similar to how it analyzes bank statements. It's able to analyze that one such that all my bulk are now replaced by that detailed analysis of my bulk transactions. You get? So that they marry themselves. And that's how we deal with that scenario. Yeah. Mhm. Hazan. Hi, Hazan.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hi.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
I just joined your program newly. My name is Otumba.
Welcome, October.
Yeah, so I just joined your program, and I want to appreciate what you are doing. And I came in late, so I don't know how possible how possible I can get this information again. Maybe if I'm gonna chat you up on LinkedIn, and maybe I can have a section which is that possible.
So two things, right? One is this session is recorded, so it's going to be available on our YouTube channel. So if you check by first thing tomorrow morning, this video will be on the YouTube channel. You can always reach
Yeah,
out to me, right?
yeah, don't worry, I'll talk to you.
I'll drop my number on the chat box so I can reach out to you.
I don't need to, no, I will get your number. You are someone I know very well.
Okay, all right, no problem.
All
Then,
right.
yeah, then the third piece is okay. I think I know the person I'm talking, but welcome, Azan.
Do you know who is speaking?
Yes, I know we're speaking. Don't worry. Hi,
All right.
Lawrence.
All right, we'll talk later.
All right, no problem. Hi, Lawrence.
Good evening, Prof.
Yeah, good evening. How you doing? Hello, Lawrence. Sorry, I think you got muted one way or the other. Hi, Lawrence.
Yes, hello, Prof. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much for what you're doing. My question is based on this AI.
Mm-hmm.
Please, I want to know which version of Excel will allow Cloud to be added in so that we can get prepared for it.
Yeah. So to be honest, I have not tried other versions, but I want to believe that any recent version of Excel from like let's say 2014 thereabout should work fine, right? I use Office 365, but I've not assessed it in terms of other its compatibility to other versions of Microsoft Excel, right? So I cannot speak based on what versions of Excel can work perfectly with it.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I will hear from Grace before we now go back to the webinar, like the slide. Hi, Grace. Hello, Grace. Okay. Grace has not muted herself, so let's go back to the slide. Yeah. All right. So this is straightforward, right? So like I said, accounting system in practice starts Saturday next week, right? I'm sure the links are already available within the chat box. And if you do well to join, as I can tell you for free, right? If I could deliver this in a free webinar, imagine the level of delivery that will happen during the course of a training session, right? And it's not just me taking it. Myself and my partner, Israel Usudame, would also be involved in this particular training. So trust me, you don't want to miss it. That's all I'll just say. Yeah. Now, these are other trainings that we'll be organizing. So for example, we're doing incomplete record, which starts 28th of February to 29th of March. Then we'll move on to management account, which is a follow-up. Once we get the trial balance for incomplete record, we go to management account where we prepare it, right? And we have other trainings during the course of the year. Do well to join, and I'm sure that you would get great value from it. Those who have attended our training in the past, I'm sure they can testify to the value we deliver. Now, so this now comes to the question that was asked around fixed assets, right? I kind of addressed it in fixed assets, and I kind of addressed receivable reconciliation. So let me address inventory. So for inventory, in terms of building incomplete record, what you typically do is do a physical count, right? So at the point when you come in, do a count, identify all inventory that exists, right? So you're going to capture the nature of the item, the unit of measurement of that item, the quantity. You can write down the people that suppliers that potentially supply that item, right? And the quantity. Yeah. And you want to get the most recent price that item was purchased at, right? Now, sometimes, depending on the reporting period, you may need to do a walk back to the reporting period where. So, for example, I want to create an account system that ended 31st December of 2024 or 2025. If I count now, I need to do a rollback. So whatever inventory I count, I want to do, what item has been sold or consumed and what item have we purchased. So I can now walk back to what the estimated inventory balance that would have been as of 31st December. And that's how you deal with inventory. Fixed assets, like I said, you want to first, go through and do like a fixed asset count, right? Keep tracks or data like, the nature of the asset itself, the specification of that asset, who was the vendor that supplied it, the name of those assets, right? The location where you found that assets, the quantity of those items, right? So that by the time you have those details, you can now potentially go to either the bank statement, engage with key employees to identify who they purchased that asset from or a value, so you can estimate that value of that asset, right? Based on the nature of the assets, you can research online on potentially useful life of those class of assets, right? And that's how you build your asset register, right? Then you can depreciate it based on when it was acquired to the date your reporting period you are targeting. Receivable, similar. You deal with someone that in the organization that understands sales records, right? Deal with your inflows from your customers to now get an estimated what the outstanding receivable will be. You can now sit down with close people within the organizations to identify, is this receivable correct, and reconcile. For major customers, you want to isolate them and reach out to them to give you a breakdown of what their receivable record is, what they've paid and what's outstanding, so you can reconcile them to get a more realistic position of what your receivable is. This could be very demanding, but that is how you potentially could deal with it, right? And that's how you potentially deal with that side. Now, once you've done that, you've identified transactions, you analyze your bank statements, you've identified a list of assets or inventory you've done. Now you want to now like do a posting to your general ledger. Now your bank statement analysis will now help you post into your general ledger. On Excel, you can create a simple general ledger. All you just need to do is create a table and add different attributes such as your date, your description, an amount, your reference, right? You want to have a unique reference to identify a transaction. You want to have a GL code and the GL description. If a transaction leads to a subledger, you want to have a subledger there, right? You want to have a comment or commentary column. So that way you can now start posting your debit and credit. You could also have debit and credits, right, as a column. And you cannot be passing those entries one by one, right? Typically for bank statement, where I typically do it is do the posting on a bulk level, right? Now, like I said, bank statement is usually based on cash. So you want to do an across side of things. So you have to identify what are those things that require some level of accrual correction, right? So for example, PP, you want to depreciate it. You identify a transaction into rent. You want to treat as prepayment and amortize it, right? You want to book salary from a gross salary perspective, not from based on the net pay. So you want to identify what are those things that typically you want to make them from an accrual standpoint. You want to identify, oh, sales that have occurred, but customers have not settled. You want to identify them and post them. So you want to do those accrual entry, right? Once you have that your GL and you posted all those transactions, with a pivot, you can basically now convert that your GL posting into a trial balance, right? So that analysis will get you from general ledger into trial balance. Give me 1 minute. Okay, so just to explain it again, right? So the first thing first is you have what? The chart of accounts, right? I have the chart of account based on the class of GLs, right? So you see your 100 series for PPE, right? I have 110 for, like say, 11 for current assets, right? I have 20 for non-current asset, non-current liability, 21 for current liability, 3 series for share capital, 4 series for revenue, 5 series for cost of sales and expense, right? Cost of sales and expense, you have 5 series. Yeah. Now these are the GL sequence. So a GL will start from 500,000 to 500,999 for cost of sales, right? So I have this. It's based on this that I now create various GL codes, right? So GL1, I create GL codes, right? So I create all the GL codes I'm interested in. Now, I have my bank statement analysis sheet, right? So this is my bank statement analysis sheet. My journal analysis sheet shows the posting date, the value date, the opening balance, debit and credit, right? The bank account. If I have more than one bank account, I have a column that tells me the bank account. They have the amount which is different between my debit and my credits. They have the class 1, class 2, class 3, which is based on the classification of each transaction, right? So I have fixed assets, sub classification is furniture and fitting. I have sales, sub classification is wholesales, right? I have inventory, sub classification is perfume and oil. Now, once I have the bank analysis, once I do a pivot on it, I use to pass an entry on my general ledger, which is this sheet. Yeah. This sheet here now shows me my posting date, GL code, GL description. Yeah. Now, in my GL description, by just changing any GL code, let's say I change to electricity cost, can you see that it changes here, right? Ctrl Z. Yeah. Here, if I change to also this one also changed because I've done it using some Excel functions, right? So all this now is here. I put a comment statement, see bank statement analysis. So that means all these are substantiated by all my analysis for my bank statement. At the bottom, I have the various schedules or things that I've used to pass things that are not from the bank statement, but means to make these accounting records more complete, right? So either from a perspective of accrual and estimation, I've done that. Now, I now use pivot, right? So under inserts, right? Pivot table from range, right? And I click OK. Yeah. I can easily now create my trial balance. So I say GL code row, GL description, amount here. Yeah. Under my pivots, right? Under design, see subtotals. I'll say do not show subtotals, right? For some people, they need to change to what? Tabular. In our form this. If you see this is now my trial balance, right? And like I said, from this, you can now use to what? Prepare your manual account. So I have my trial balance, and that's how I deal with incomplete record, right? You see end to end of all the key activities that happen. So like I said, I'll pause here and take questions at this point, right? I'll try to export and create and put it at the things that will upload to the YouTube channel. So someone said I should drop the prompts. Okay, no wahala. So there's nothing special about the prompt too. Don't think there's one special thing. So I will drop the prompts. Yes, please drop the prompt. Oh, sorry. You draw something, so let me just, I have missed some things. Okay, So I have done that. So I've dropped the prompt. Yeah, the training is next week Saturday and starting. So now, is it possible for 2 to 5 candidates share Claude AI as a result of course implication? Yeah, I think it's possible, right? But like I said, Claude itself has a limit on how the usage is, right? So I think there's a way, number of rows it has read at a particular point in time, it will tell you it has locked. You have to wait for like 3 hours later on before you can reuse. So yes, you can optimize it by using 3 or 4 or 5 people to use it, but it also has a limitation on usage, right? So there's a high likelihood that you run out of usage within a short space of time. Okay. All right. Let me see. Okay. So I think I've gone to the chat box and let me see. Let's see hands raised and let's see if there are hands raised and answer questions raised. So we have just 6 minutes left. So let's hear from Babatunde. Hi, Babatunde. Hi, Babatunde. Okay, Babatunde is not with us again. Okay, let's hear from John. Hi, John. Hello, John. John is not with us. Okay. Toby Loba.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, John. Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, sir. Thank you for all what you have done for us. Sir, there's a scenario in my place of work. I just nearly joined them. In 2024, there's a credit sale, but it was recognized as car sales. And in 2025, the customer is now started paying now. But meanwhile, the sales have been recognized as cash sales in the account in 2024. What can we do in this scenario?
So if I get you right, you recognize a sale like the customer had paid, but he had not paid, right?
He has not paid. It's a credit sales.
The credit
But
sale.
it was recognized because I just joined them newly. But what the account clerk is telling me that this sales has been already recognized by cash sales in 2024.
Yeah. So I don't think there's anything wrong recognizing as the credit sales in 2024, right? The critical thing that how do you recognize it? I want to be like the credit revenue and debited receivable, right? The major thing was that the performance obligation related to recognition that revenue actually happened in that 2024 or 2025, right? And payment after is not a benchmark for recognition of revenue. It just ensures that, oh, the person is actually settling for what is due for based on either an agreed term, right? And if I understand it correctly, I don't see anything wrong. The critical thing is that they recognize it and they're collecting it after, right?
What I'm saying is that
okay,
that money is not part of receivable in 2024, but they are now using the money to reduce receivable in 2025. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, so that means they didn't recognize it in, that means
They didn't recognize this as credit sales. They recognize this as cash sales, total sales then.
Okay, so that means for me, if they recognize it then, it means they credited revenue and debited potentially bank, right? So that means there's a concern item in bank.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yes, sir.
Invariably, what should happen is to resolve
what
that.
What I do is that to create a debtor suspense account because I just put that money there. Because since it's not part of their receivable in 2024, how will I use the money that is paying now to reduce the receivable?
Yeah.
That's my concern.
Yeah. So what I expect should have happened is if they recognize the revenue last year, right? That means they created revenue and debited somewhere. For the sake of argument, let's say they debited bank. It means that there will be a reconciling item in bank. What I need to now do is resolve that reconciling item, right? And how do I reconcile it? I credit bank and debit my receivable, right? All I need to do is identify when they recognize that sale last year, where did the corresponding debit go to? I need to move that receivable, that debit from wherever it is to my receivable account. That way, once I collect and I'm debiting my receivable bank, I'll credit my receivable properly at that point in time. So the key thing to correct it is identify where they booked that receivable or where they booked the debit to, and move it from that place to my receivable account to properly restate my receivable at that point in time.
Sorry, sir. Another dilemma that I'm facing now is that the CEO will pay from his own personal account, and we will get another payment from the company account. What can we do?
Okay, so what I said is, more often than not, the scenario where transactions happen from the CEO's account, there's no magic.
Personal account, sir.
No personal account. There's no magic in that scenario. If the CEO does not give you his own bank statement to analyze, to identify how he spends money, or provide a report on every money that goes to his account on how he spent it, there's nothing you can do. That needs to be
But
done.
what I do in that scenario is that I put it in director collects account.
So that may not be complete, because the reality is, as long as you put it in direct current account, it means that a lot of the transactions in your GL may most likely not be properly substantiated, right? And for example, they pay 1 million to the director's account, right? However, he pays that 1 million. He used to pay like 10 different expenses on behalf of the business, right?
Yeah.
You
Yes, sir.
potentially if not trade that transaction correctly, right? Is there a ball game if the guy takes money for his own personal use, but if he's taking money that he now helps spending on behalf of the business, one way or the other, that breakdown of those transactions need to be done. Either from him submitting his own bank statement for analysis, because invariably his own personal account is being used to run the business, or he provides some sort of detailed analysis of every money that goes to him, how it's spent. Right. The honest truth that if he doesn't do that, there's no magic in this world you want to do. Right. Potentially
Yes, sir.
your record will not.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right, thank you.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Tobiloba. Hi, Tobiloba. Hi, Tobiloba. Okay, there's nothing you can hear from. Hi, Bolade.
Okay, thank you very much. Please kindly give us all the other prompts you are using, even for the one that was not explained today.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I'll try and drop as the prompt I have. I don't know if there's any other prompt again, but there are so the thing is, there's no special thing. It's like I'm writing English. Right.
Yes, but we just want to ensure that because you have the experience, so that's why we want to be mentored by you. And prompt engineering is very key. If you can drop it both in this chat box and the WhatsApp group.
I'll try and find them. Right. I don't have them one place. The only one I had I kept was called this particular webinar that I created and kept it somewhere. Right.
Lovely. Then secondly, that automate in your Microsoft Z365, can you briefly, in some seconds, explain what's used for? And then lastly, may we know whether we can use the free version of Claude with the Excel add-on?
To be honest, I've not tried the free version. Potentially you'll be able to use it, but I'm sure it will be limited to how much you can do with it. Right. I'm not sure I saw, you said automate. I can't remember automate anywhere that I use automate. I didn't use automate anywhere.
After view, you have formula data review view automate. Automate rather, automate. After view, the next one. The next
okay. Funny enough, I can't remember using automate, right? Oh, okay.
I know there's something called Power Automate, so I was not thinking.
Yeah, I have not, to be honest, I've not used it. I found it caught my attention to it. I've not used it. But I think what had happened was, as a result of me using Claude, I think was one that brought in this automate, right? I suspect it's the Office JS, what he used to run some of the scripts he used in delivering it. So it was not me, right? So if you look at it, can you see JSON? It was actually the Claude that brought it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then lastly, can you maybe even if it's tomorrow, to give us another free webinar on debit and credit and all those kind of, since that seems to have a lot of complexity for accountants. And then kindly share us template of some of these scenarios you have done for us today.
Okay.
Thank you.
So one, in terms of webinar on debit and credit, we did one. It's on the YouTube channel, right? I think my colleague will drop a link to the YouTube channel. It's called, I think, double entry something, right? It's a playlist on Accounting Yard YouTube channel. So it has that, right? So which other thing do you ask? What's the last one you asked? Funny. So Ibrahim Adinoye. Okay, so let's take Ibrahim Adinoye. Hi, Ibrahim. Hi, Ibrahim. Okay, Ibrahim is not responding. So Isika. Hi, Isika. Hello, hi. Hi, Isika.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah, hi.
Good afternoon, Oladele.
Yeah, good afternoon. Please hold on, give me 1 minute. I'm coming.
Okay. So my question is, will you be able to tie all of this into
I'm
next
back.
weekend's training?
Yeah, I'm back. Isika. Yeah. You want to say something?
Yes, I'm asking, will you be able to tie all of this cloud AI into the next Saturday's training by yourself?
I didn't get it. Can you say it again? I didn't get your question.
You said, will you be able to tie all of these preambles that you're giving us today into next Saturday's training? Because I've attended your preparation of management account training before, and I'm just asking, will you be able to tie this from the bank statement to all these pivot table to cloud AI into preparing the management account? Will you be able to do that for us in the next training?
So okay, so Isika, you said you attended the preparation of management account, right?
Yes.
So from a scale of 1 to 10, how detailed was it?
It was very detailed, like 8.5.
8.5. So
Yes.
so if we've delivered at that level, right, I can tell you for a fact that you see a lot of the things you are seeing here, there'll be, so let me explain how the class will be structured. The class will be structured is roughly, I think, either 5 weeks or 6 weeks. Now, 3 weeks will be on understanding principles and double entry, right? The last 3 weeks will be focused on a case study, right? Where we build from zero record to a complete accounting system to the trial balance, right? The only thing we'll not do is prepare the management account. So all these analysis, scenarios where we create like records, do work back, we'll do it in that scenario. So you see everything play out, right? To just give you context, you see the final output you're seeing here. This was from a training that we held last year. But like I said, for example, I'm bringing AI into the classroom, right? Which was not done the last time. So I'm bringing AI into the classroom in terms of leveraging AI from a very deeper perspective. So everybody will see AI. If I do something manually, I'll show you the AI perspective, right? Not in all scenarios, but in some critical scenarios, I'll show you, oh, you could do this with AI in a simpler version. You see it there, right? So hope that answers your question, Sika.
Okay.
Hi.
Good evening, Oladele.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah. So please, I'll be glad if by next weekend you can, for we that are just coming, although I've attended a couple of your trainings, free and the monetized one, but I'll be glad if you can slow down a bit on your pace.
Sure. So thank you for saying that. I know that I'm fast, and what will happen during the classes, I'll be slower because this is a webinar, this is 2 hours. So there's a lot I was covering within 2 hours. So I'll be slower, but I'm always happy to get feedback in case I need to still slow down further. Right. But thanks for letting me know. Yeah.
Reason is your partner takes time to, entertain questions during the course of explanation as compared to you. I'm sorry to, we all have a different style. But it's just for you to at least be conscious of we that are just coming off stream. I've attended before, but because of the rate at which you move, so I was discouraged. Let me just put it that way. but I didn't leave the group anyway. So this one that is coming up next weekend with the integration of AI, I am interested and I will surely, but whenever you are moving, I mean, based on the previous class I've attended, I think I will have to call your attention to it to please pipe low
All right, no problem.
for we that are in the industry.
No problem. So, and Ibrahim, I appreciate the feedback, right? And for those who have interacted with me over time, right, you know that I am gradually reducing my pace, right? And ignore the webinar. Webinar is 2 hours, so there's a limit to how much I can do, right? But definitely, I take feedback seriously, and I'll ensure that I reduce my pace as much as possible, right? And just to strike a balance. Yeah. And but we can always talk better over chat, and so I can get more context. And sorry that
No problem.
maybe pace discouraging the last training.
Thank you. Thank you for it.
You're welcome. Okay, I think I to Kingsley. So Ayodeji, I think I'll just take 2 more people and we call it a day. Right. Hi, Ayodeji.
Good afternoon, Oladile.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation. Mine is for a company that has so many bank statements. How do you tend to integrate them using your AI, this Claude AI and the rest?
So yeah, same process, right? You analyze each bank statement separately. Once you've done the analysis, you can now consolidate all of them. Now, if you remember very well, when I was showing this an example of one that I had done, right? If you notice in the bank statement, I told you there's a column that says bank accounts, right? So if you look at this, I have 2 bank accounts in this scenario, right? So it means that after the overall bank statement analysis, I can combine both of them, all the bank statements. I just create a column that tells me different bank accounts these transactions are coming from. So that way, based on the global bank account, I can now do a summary that will now move to my GL, right? So I'll post each of them based on the bank account, right? And that's how I'll move it there. And that's how I'll handle it.
All right, thank you.
All right. So who is the lucky last person? Hi, Uche.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Uche.
Okay, my question is a follow-up to what I've forgotten his name, the one that was asking of when the CEO spends from his account. So being realistic, in a situation where the now NRS, when they come for audits, what should be done in that situation as the accountant?
So then those are the kind of points that you want to explain to the MD, right? That see, when things like this happen, it's either one, they assess he personally, right? His personal income tax from a very, because we assume that any money that goes to him is like salary or remuneration towards him, right? As a result, his personal income tax would increase, right? That's why the fact that he's actually spending on behalf of the business, right? And that should make him now give justification in terms of the relevant supporting document to transactions like that. Now, dealing with NRS, the honest truth is that you have either some level of contract that says that, oh, the MD does he maybe handle certain transactions on behalf of the business, right? And provides either some level of a monthly spend, right, that shows it. Now, there's high probability that you may kick that out, but that's like your best bet in terms of explaining transactions that go with the MD, in terms of how they handle it. High probabilities that they may, because of, for example, NRS is more focused in terms of companies rather than individual, right? They either want to either disallow such an expense, or they tell you, oh, provide some level of annual returns of your MD to justify that, oh, maybe this is an expense or like a salary or remuneration to him, right? But to be honest, it's a very difficult scenario. I'm not a tax expert, right? But as much as possible, your best approach is to ensure that transactions handled by him are properly documented or substantiated Otherwise, it's either is exposed to personal income tax, right? Or the business is exposed to greater CIT because those expenses or money spent by him are disallowed, right? Because you cannot properly substantiate them.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. All right. So I know there are more hands, but I'm a respecter of time. We're 30 minutes shoot our time. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me personally. I will drop my number, right, in case you feel led to reach out to me, right? But if you've enjoyed this webinar, do free to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow Accounting Yard, right? And I'm sure that you'd definitely benefit from being a member or interacting with us. So the slide will also be uploaded to the YouTube channel. So you see them within the description section. So you can always get all the materials that were used during the course of this webinar, right? Some of them just to show what they are, right? But if you want more value, right, don't forget to join the actual class, right? Come next week, Saturday. I'm sure the links for the class must have been dropped so that you can actually pay and join the actual training, right? But yeah, thank you everyone. Do enjoy the rest of your day and have a lovely weekend. And don't forget to talk about this webinar in terms of the value and what we've done on your virtual social media platforms, either on LinkedIn, on IG, or your WhatsApp status. If you really enjoy this class, stay blessed and take care, everyone.